All right, Detroit Lions finish above 500. They defeat the Chicago Bears, completing a sweep of the Bears and winning their only two divisions versus the Chicago Bears this year. Other than that, they went two and went four in the division. They lost twice to Minnesota, and lost twice to Green Bay. But ultimately, they played. They played it like a real game. There were some guys missing, but they strapped their nuts on. Dan coached it very well. The Bears couldn't stop nothing the Lions really had going on offensively. They really buckled down, in the red zone, and that's been the Lions' Achilles heel this season, is not being able to stop score touchdowns in the red zone like they used to. So I think, today just showed that, if any other week didn't show, the inability to run the ball. In the past, they were good, in the red zone because they could run the football. And now, not really being able, utilizing Dave Montgomery and really the mix up in the middle of the offensive line. It's been harder to run the football. It's been harder in short yardage situations where they struggled a little bit today and it's harder in the red zone. If you can't run the football, it's going to be hard to be a successful red zone team, especially when your quarterback not mobile. For the most part, they dominated. Only reason the scoreboard didn't really reflect the domination was from the simple fact they didn't score touchdowns. And this year, they've not been able to consistently score touchdowns off of multi-play drives. That's been their problems. And you can point directly to that problem being linked to, if you're being honest, that problem points directly to the inability to run the football. And they just fired the Atlanta Falcons head coach, Raheem Morris. So he out. Probably for taking two quarterbacks, right? Taking the kid for Washington and then taking Kirk Cousins. But that was just what it boiled down to. Defensively, they got after into that. This year, defensively, looking what they had on paper, even before the injuries or after the injuries, I don't think it was a big shocker, but I think they overperformed getting pressure. I just think for the most part today, it showed them losing Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, not having Alex out there today, but just in general, the safeties, their inability to cover tight ends. And then on the other side of it, not having their premier tight end, but Goff was 331 in the cold, one touchdown, one interception, 27 for 32. He was sacked twice. Gibbs, averages over 4 yards a carry, 19 carries, 80 yards. Montgomery, 8 carries, 42 yards. So they had it cooking. Myra, 11 catches, 139. Most of that came in the first half. J-Mo had, a drop and then another ball that kind of he should have caught and scored a touchdown on. And other than that, Aiden Hutchinson recorded a sack and that was it. So they got to, get more consistent pressure. I mean, I don't expect anybody to see anybody defensive end position back next year, not name Aiden Hutchinson. I don't see none of them guys coming back, to be real with you. Caleb Williams, 20 for 33, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Swift had 10 carries, 40 yards. They shut down the run today. Tyleek Williams, he did a good job of that today, shutting it down. Colston Loveland, 10 carries, 91 yards, 1 TD for Michigan. Jahai Walker had a, 2 for 36, 1 touchdown. Their sacks, 1 came from Montez Sweat, and 1 was split between Gary Jarrett and, half a sack came from Montez Sweat. Full sack came from Javon Dexter Jr., and Andrew Spillingsley, and Sweat and Gary Jarrett split 1. And, today is just they got to find a way to run the football. And I think mixing up that middle of that offensive, the whole offensive line has looked like it's going to be remixed next year. That's what it looked like. It's going to be a definite remix. Just from the simple fact that there's rumors that, Taylor Decker's going to be gone. Whether it's Tay Ralish going to center and they going with another guard, it's going to be different, and they're going to make sure they try to get it right as possible. But if it was ever a time to kind of switch guys' position, it's now. whether it's switching Sewell to left side, switching, Tate Rallish to center, moving in a new guard. But I think at this point it's probably time to move on. You moved on from Frank. It's probably time to move on from Taylor Decker. And with that being said, if Decker retires, the left tackle position becomes the most important position that they must fill in free agency or the draft. Finding a left tackle, that's imperative. Then I would say probably, if they're gonna switch Tate to center, probably going out there and getting a veteran guard that can play center. And I think that's be what it is. But today it just shows the formula is run the ball, stop the run, and then if they can get after the passer, that's the bonus. So right now, finding a left tackle, even if they could come back, finding an eventual left tackle replacement or getting that Manu Giovanni guy ready. But if Decker gone, finding that left tackle. But in general, just the whole premise, them going forward is being able to run the ball, stop the run, get after the passer. That's what they got to do. And I think heavy emphasis on getting after the passer. Chicago is just a great matchup for us, whether they play man to man, we thrive in those situations. And I think next year, they got to continue to find ways to try to find the ways to attack outside the hashes. Teams are going to continue to try to stop the run. And that's what really opens up the middle of the field. When the Lions can run the ball, that's what opens up the middle of the field. But in general, they still got to find creative ways to get the ball outside the hashes. And then that's not really Goff Strong's suit. You have to have a really strong arm to throw it outside the hashes. And right now, the Lions got to find a way to get outside the hashes. But ultimately, what they struggled with this year was Brian Flores' defense in Green Bay, and that was just all the loops, the wraps, the stunts, who coming, who going. That's what they struggle with, and that's something that they got to be on and got to be imperative to be on next year. Whatever the offensive line look like, there's going to be some bumps and bruises there. Ultimately they can go Tate at center, Frazier at guard, Mahogany at guard, and it really will be a lot of cohesiveness there. And if Decker come back, cool. If they find left tackle, but in general, it's going to be a new, order or a new combination of guys. So my thing is, guess what? Let Decker move on, retire, keep him in the fold just in case you need him. And then my whole thing is just make sure you get it right. Whether it's bringing in the center, keeping Tate at right, keeping Mahogany at left, and bringing in a new left tackle, whether it's putting Tate at right center, keeping Frazier, Mahogany, and a new left tackle, but do what's right. But ultimately, the Lions, this is a bad matchup. The Bears got to do what everybody else do is stop that run. And when they running with Montgomery, and Gibbs, it's tough to do that. Therefore, it opens up the middle of the field. And defensively for them, it's just hopefully you get your safeties back who really good in coverage, covering tight ends. Hopefully they come back 100%, and then really finding a coverage linebacker is probably also going to help, but having those safeties back can help. And then finding, some pass rushers up front. I mean, and realistically, you need somebody that can rush it up the middle from the defensive tackle. You need some juice on the edge. So, they seem like simple things, but also they just been things that the Lions have been avoided for quite some time. But it feels good to go ahead and put a win under the column versus the Bears and Ben Johnson. But, next year they must recognize that offensive line is the priority. Finding a couple pass rushers is the priority as well, too. And then from there, probably a nice coverage linebacker that can cover because you're probably going to lose Anzoni. So, but ultimately, we'll see what the Bears can do. I don't think most people believe the Bears are a good team, but one of the true superpowers of the Chicago Bears, if I'm being real, is playing in Soldier Field, playing in the elements. They're never going to have great gaudy numbers. I think the best thing that Ben Johnson did was run the football. You play outdoors, run that football. And that's what they did. And that's going to be a formula if they secured the second seed. So if they can just run the football, stop the run, and get some elements on their side, they should have a good chance to be successful. Um, they should have a good chance to be successful, in my opinion. So if I'm them, just run the football. Um, and then, for the most part, we're gonna run it. We're gonna play hard nosed defense. But yeah, they come in this year it's wide open as far as the playoffs. Anybody can make a run. But hey, thumbs up the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Good kick by Jake Bates at the end. A little shaky this year. We'll see what's up. 19-16 Lions win over the Bears. Finish 9-8. Bears going to the playoffs. Believe they're the number 2 seed. We'll see what happens and pay attention to them. Peace.